Bayou Time Sports is brought to you by Terrible General Health System's Community Sports Institute in conjunction with Barker Honda.
All right, welcome back, everybody, and we're here with Mike Detillier. Of course, to introduce Mike, it would take a whole segment. He does a lot. He's super involved, and a lot of people come to you for your knowledge and just to start things off. How is that, I guess, escalated over the years? Because a lot of people call you up and you know a lot about talent, but it's pretty widespread now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just not about sports anymore. It's across the board. But it's all good. But escalation, literally from, in your first start, come on, nobody really knew who you were, if you could do this. And now, to do it, it's at an 8 or 9 scale. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes I'm doing 7 to 9 shows a day other than WWL. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of overload. But my thing is, you pitch it, I hit it. No matter where you're going to put it on the strike zone, I'm going to hit it. You just kind of throw the ball.
How do you deal? Look, we've been doing broadcasts for 40 years now, and there's always a case where we go to a stadium to cover something, or a parent pulls me aside and goes, "You ought to see my boy. He's pretty good." But when I leave that conversation, I'm thinking, we got the next Will Clark. Then I go watch him play, and I'm going, average. I bet you hear that a lot, don't you?
Yeah, daily. And not only from the parents, grandma and grandpa, the cousin, everybody, across the board. So the one thing that has dramatically changed, high school-wise, name, image, likeness transfer means a lot less high school kids are entering the colleges directly. Mm-hmm. They may have to go to a JUCO, or they may have to go somewhere else. They're not going directly to necessarily an LSU or Tulane or Southeastern or Nichols. There might be another place before they land there. Mm-hmm. That's different from when we were in high school. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the case.
Right.
So sometimes it's a maturity level too, especially with a big person. Mm-hmm. I always have a little bit more of a caveat with that somebody big could mature physically and have their balance kind of figured out a little bit better at 20 than they do at 17 or 18.
Before we talk men's stuff, Saints and LSU football, I gotta pick your brain a little bit about LSU women's basketball. Kim Mulkey comes in, and in her second year, wins it all, and develops star-powered players who have their own mind, their own voice. She lets them have their own moxie. Does that put pressure on the men's program and the new coaches that have come in to go, the girls just won one, we better step our game up?
They can say no, but it does. I don't care who you are. Mm-hmm. If you Matt McMahon at LSU in basketball, or if you Jay Johnson in baseball, okay, look what Kim did. Kim would, if you put her on a lie detector machine and you asked her, did you think this team would win the national title? If she told you yes, it would blow the circuits out, because she didn't think that way. Right. And she always laughs. She tells the story. We had her on weekly on WWL. Every week she'd come on. Yeah. So we had a guest pull out on a Wednesday night. Something happened, had to pull out. So out of the blue, I text her, "Hey, you want to come on 7:10 tonight?" She was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Okay, who didn't want to come on that you asking me in early January to come on?" I was like, "Okay, if you want to come on, we'll do it every week." And she was like, "Okay, I'm taking you at your word." And she was like, "But remember," and she said, "explain this to Bobby. We are on the journey. We're not there yet." Mm-hmm. And yet to have everything happen right. Everything happened right. And she was a big part of it. She's a huge personality. I've known her since she was at Louisiana Tech. Mm-hmm. And so we go back a few years, both of us. She's loud. She's abrasive. She's going to tell you what she thinks. She's a winner. Okay, not many people can say I got 4 national championships and at 2 different programs.
Right.
And this is just a start at LSU. And every week, Martin, and I've told her you would be on my Mount Rushmore of guests. Every week she tells you something that you didn't know about her or that team. It's amazing how she is so good as an on-air personality. And she give Bobby a bunch of she kind of zings him. What you doing? You look old. And man, that gets under his skin, but good. But she gets under him.
She gets on her players pretty good. Now look, that's some star-studded players who have a personality. She knows how to tweak them just enough to make them mad and go out there and do it.
Yeah, and I think it's part of us getting older to adjusting to the times. Okay, we both in our 60s, Kim and I, but I think like a 30-year-old. And I think I can relate to that. And she does too. I know she does. Now, like she said, sometimes it's a little harder than others because of social media. I tell them, put that phone down. That is not what we about here. But she does know it's sort of part of the persona today. With Angel, I mean, Angels use that better than anybody. And when they have a Saturday Night Live sketch about you, I don't care what you thought about the sketch.
Right.
You have made it.
That's right.
When you have that happen.
Put the phones down. I've said that quite a few times too, from the old school. But the old school and the new school,
It blends.
there can be a blend.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. And I always go back to Coach Albert when he was coaching the girls in softball at Vanderbilt. And I always thought Michelle Broussard was just throwing flames. But she was at that time. But if you took Michelle Broussard today and put her on a lot of programs, they're all throwing like that. But somebody had to start it and get them recognized. And I was glued. Me and Mom were watching the women's basketball game. And when I tell you, I was every bit as excited about that as I was any other LSU event. Women's sports have arrived. They're marketing pretty well now, aren't they?
Yeah, and you have the emergence of star players, star coaches, all in one shot. Why I think men's basketball has taken a step back. If you're really good, you go on after your freshman year. I'm going to play in the NBA.
Right.
I'm not staying here.
Right.
I'm going. What has helped men's basketball is the COVID year. That is basically like it didn't happen.
Right.
So I think what Kim has done is she's brought her star power to LSU, and then you bring in star players, and she always talks about development. Angel Reese was at Maryland. Mm-hmm. Was she great at Maryland? She was good.
Right.
Now she's great here. And so she has been able to kind of put the battery cables and jumpstart that program.
She was challenged, and Kim Mulkey said it. She goes, I get in their face, and she goes, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to apologize for challenging you because I want you to be a better woman. She's pretty good at that.
And I think what she won't tell you is Angel is just like her. And Angel being the leader of that team, she is a younger version of Kim Mulkey. In essence, I want to find a player that's just like me, and I can have her speak the exact same language as I'm speaking.
Right.
But she's younger. She gets it. Mm-hmm. And so Kim does a great job of being able to kind of juggle that. I've always thought in our lifetime, what Nick Saban has done in his 70s is remarkable. Mm-hmm. He has nothing in common with a 19, 20-year-old player. Nothing in common.
But he can relate to the parents.
But he can relate to mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and everybody else. And if you come here, what does every player that signs a scholarship at Alabama want to do? One day I want to play in the pros.
Right.
I'm going to give you the best shot, right? Look, all the guys we put in the NFL. Yeah. And so the crazy thing about college basketball today is you are making more money with name, image, likeness in women's sports than you would if you go to the WNBA for most gals.
I wonder how much Angel's making now.
Angel's making over $1 million.
Yeah, it's incredible.
How that has changed. And listen, great for her. You know, I'm all for it. You never hear me talk bad about somebody who wants to get paid, right, and they're willing to take it, but you got to produce.
But she put the work in, and she did the time, and she's a star.
And she's willing to take the lightning rod shots. And Kim likes that too. because
Yeah.
she's willing to take it. When we had her on in February, it just popped in my head because I had not seen the outrageous outfits that she was wearing before. She would always dress nice, but now, man, they had a bunch of feathers, everything else. And, so when I asked her, she was like, I'm all for, if you paying attention to me for what I'm wearing is great. If you also watching the game.
Right.
So I'm part of that. And then we branch out into two designers, LSU ties, are making the outfits for her.
Right.
And so her deal is, this was my giving back to them, that I'm wearing it, you get the recognition for it, so you can sell some of the same stuff. You know what they sell today? Stuff for like the little grandkids and the little 7, 8-year-olds. That's what they're selling it for.
I think you and Bobby and Rich, when we do Sports on the Bayou again, ought to feather up a little bit.
I know Bobby would like it. It doesn't matter to him what he
like
wears.
the male version of Kim Mulkey.
Similar. Because one time she was like, okay, guys, y'all asking me what I wear. What are y'all wearing? And Bob's like, I just got nothing but a pullover shirt and a hat on. She's like, come on, Bob, you got to do better than that. I know Mike's a lot better dressed than you, which wouldn't really take a heck of a lot. But if that helps you sell that program, and gets attention to the program, hey, I'm all for it.
You remember how well Rick Pitino used to dress?
Yeah.
And just, his tie was perfect, his suit was tailored. And let me ask you, going back to Kim Mulkey, she was making a lot of phone calls getting people to play for her. Is her phone ringing now?
Yeah, it's, how they say that, verse visa. You don't have to make the phone call. She had 8 new players on that team. So for her, it was trying to piece everything together to have the best squad you could have. She has the #1 ranked recruiting class in the country coming in. And she threw the caveat the last time, had her on last week, was, hey, we are going to get a couple transfers. We're going to get people that played somewhere else to say, okay, what did you lose? I'm going to come play for you. And so it does help.
When they see skits on Saturday Night Live and everything else, they all want a piece of that.
And they know how much Angel's making.
Yeah.
Okay? And Caitlin Clark is making a ton of money also with what she can do. And, man, she's as good a woman shooter as I've ever seen, the way she can put it
there's
up.
no doubt.
She's Pistol Pete and pigtails.
Really. Me and Harry were talking about that right before the game. First of all, let's talk a little Saints. What's happening with the Saints, and what can we expect, and how do they get their moxie back?
You got better at quarterback. You were stuck in neutral last year. And Andy did the best he could for the talent that he had. Now you've gotten much better at quarterback with Derek Carr. And I don't think just a little better. I think you've gotten much better at quarterback with Derek. And bringing in Jamal Williams at running back, I think, is a huge plus. The one guy on the team that would really upgrade your offense if he's healthy is Michael Thomas. But that's a if.
Right.
I have no idea if he can stay healthy for 1 game or 17 games. I'm much willing to bet the under on the 17 that he doesn't. But he is the big factor, along with Derek. So offensively, I would like to get another receiver, a big receiver. I got smaller guys. Olave, he showed he's a really good football player. Rashid Shaheed, speed in the lineup. A tight end. Jawan Johnson can catch the ball, but they were getting beat off the edge. You got to have a running game going. Get me a bigger tight end that can help in the running game. So offensively, there are some pieces there in place and some missing pieces.
And Dennis Allen knows Derek, so he knows his quarterback.
Yeah, and I think today with all this off-season work that you can do, come on, it don't take that long to pick it up.
Right.
And he's a smart guy, super man, really does. Family guy. He is dedicated to football. So that part is in place. I think you win up front. Offensive, defensive line. Last 2 years you've been beat up. Injuries along the offensive line. So you got to get depth. Okay? Oh, we got 5 good ones. Okay, what happens if the 5th one goes down? Where are you at afterwards? You need depth there. Defense is Dennis's wheelhouse. I think you're good in the secondary. Linebacker, you sort of thin and getting in it up in age with Demario Davis. Defensive line, you need a defensive tackle, and you need an edge rusher. So don't be surprised. The first 2 picks are defensive linemen.
I saw Demario had a little crack in his empire last year. He showed me sometimes where he's vulnerable, which I hadn't seen early on.
Yeah, well, Father Time sort of rings your doorbell different times. So you saw a little bit of a drop-off in his play. He's still good, but maybe he's not at that elite level anymore. So you got to know kind of when it's over for someone. And losing Caden Ellis was, to me, a big loss. He gave you a really good edge pass rusher. Marcus Davenport, major disappointment, and you couldn't pay him. Listen, if somebody else wants to pay him that kind of money, $18 million to go play for the Vikings, hey, God bless you. Take that money and run. Defensive tackle, to me, is an area of need. I know that they got a couple guys in free agency, but they didn't stop the run well early last year, and they didn't get much of a pass rush from inside.
Yeah.
That has to be a priority for this football team.
I always want to ask you, the splitting of the Pelicans and the Saints front office doing double duty, in your opinion, is that an advantage or a disadvantage?
Because of the fact David Griffin runs the Pelicans and Mickey runs the Saints, you know, because Mickey had the title, but he didn't have the job with the Pelicans.
That answers my question.
Yeah, and so David runs it. With the Pelicans, it's talent. They have it. But can you get Zion on the court? You know, for you and I, we mentally into this. Sometimes physically we may not feel as well as we do, could be. But for Zion, man, missing all that time for a young player, everything occurring on his right side, if it's his right hip, his right foot, his right Achilles, his right knee, his right hamstring, man, you got to go see a specialist. I know he's left-handed, but that has to be fixed. Because if you're going to keep him, he can't be watching. He got to be playing.
He's like Michael Thomas to me. I mean,
well, with Mike,
Mike Thomas had a great year. You know?
No, Mike was, and I will say this: in November and December, Zion was as good as anyone in the NBA. But you know, just dribbling a ball down court and he pulls a hamstring. Martin, I watch a lot of basketball. I've seen guys pull a hamstring, but not like that.
Right.
So he is always going to have some downtime. Just the way God pieced him together, he's going to have it. My thing is, I'm willing to accept the injury. This super long return back is what I think really gets under the skin of a lot of fans here. Of why is a 3-week injury taking him 9 weeks? Why is it taking that long? And this year especially, there is not a dominant team in the West. If Zion had been on that court, this team could have legitimately made a run for everything in the West. That's how good they were. But with him not there, listen, you take 20-something points out of your lineup every game, you're fortunate that you were even in the play-in at that stage.
And I'm going to get you back to talk just LSU football because I know a lot of people are dying for that. But real quick, with 40 seconds left, LSU's record, what's your prediction going into the new season?
I think they win 10 games. I think they'll, you know the toughest game they may play? Week 1, Florida State. I do it for a couple different magazines. Other than the final year of Jameis Winston, we have never talked about Florida State as a top 10 team. Never.
Now we are.
And now we are. And you playing that one game to start the season, that may be LSU's toughest game. Alabama does not return a starting quarterback. Georgia does not return their starting quarterback. You got a shot.
Let's do this. I'm getting you back. We're talking all LSU football.
Okay, we'll
Thank
do
you,
it.
Mike.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Appreciate it, Mark.
All right, there you have it. We'll be back with more. Don't go away.